Hello and welcome to the beautiful Al Bayt Stadium in Doha, one of the 8 state-of-the-art arenas of the FIFA World Cup and the venue for the very first FIFA Arab Cup coming up this weekend. The eyes of the world will be on Qatar over the next year in the build-up to the very first FIFA World Cup in the Middle East. But today, we're looking forward to football's future. At the request of the overwhelming majority of member associations, a thorough consultation process is being carried out on the optimization of the international match calendar. And the views of you, the fans, is central to all of that from all 4 corners of the world. Here we'll find out what the fans have said and take your questions and comments on football's future. The importance of that is underlined by the FIFA president, Gianni Infantino.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Future of Football Fans webinar to discuss and present your feedback in relation to how we want to shape football together for the years ahead. As you know, the international match calendars that govern when competitions are played will expire for women's and men's football in 2023 and 2024 respectively. This means that a discussion needs to take place in order to find the best way forward. As FIFA president, my vision is to make football truly global. My vision is to have at least 50 teams, both clubs and national teams, women's and men's from all the continents, competing at the highest level. In order to do that, we need to reflect on the situation that exists within our sport, not just to satisfy the short-term needs of the here and now, but to take a step back and to project where we want to be for the long term. We need to ask ourselves the important questions. Where do we want football to be positioned in the lives of not only us, but in the lives of future generations? How do we want to maintain football's position as the most popular sport in the world? We know there are so many distractions and challenges in today's world. Equally, as FIFA president, I have an obligation to improve and promote football. It is written in the FIFA statutes, and to facilitate that, I want FIFA's doors to be open to discuss the risks and the opportunities in making football truly global. This does not mean that football should be for the benefit of some and to the detriment of others. But football should be there for the benefit of all 211 FIFA member associations across every continent and across the globe. This means having an open consultation with everyone. And central to this is your involvement as the fans who support football day and night, win, lose or draw. Your participation is crucial and your voice is being heard. Today we are presenting the conclusions that have been made following an independent global survey where fans were asked for their opinion on a number of questions related to the future of football. These conclusions will shape our thinking on how to make football truly global, especially because this is the biggest and broadest survey and consultation with fans across the globe that has ever taken place. FIFA is listening to fans and taking into account your needs in shaping the future of football. As FIFA president, I encourage everyone to participate in an open, democratic process to shape the future direction of the beautiful game. In this respect, I thank you for your participation and I also thank you for your support.
Well, as President Infantino says, our global sport has a global consultation. Later on, we'll delve deeper into what the fans' feedback has been. But before then, and as you know, FIFA has canvassed a wide range of stakeholders and the players are among the key actors in that. So I'm delighted to be joined here at Al Bayt by 2 players who have made major contributions to tournament history. Nuno Gomes played in the 2002 and 2006 FIFA World Cups, making it to the semi-finals of the latter, and Juan Pablo represented Colombia with distinction, but never really played on the biggest stage of all. I don't mean to burn you there, but thank you very much for joining us. Nuno, I'm going to start with you. Look, we're here to reflect the views of the fans. Can you tell us about their passion and how it's helped you and your teammates in your career?
Well, It's a pleasure for me to be here, Samantha, and looking forward to attend the next World Cup on this beautiful country and stadiums. Well, the importance of fans for me is everything. I believe football without fans is not the same. And unfortunately, we saw in the last months with the pandemic how is football without people and fans in the stadium. So for me, it was very important to have that support, their support, and to see and watch the fans from all over the country supporting one team, one country, the same colors, while during the season we are used to see fans supporting different clubs. When it comes to support your country together as one. So it's unbelievable and a passion. And for the players, is an extra motivation to get into the pitch.
Imagine. Juan Pablo, I'm going to bring you in here. Now, you're very much experienced when it comes to passionate fans. Can you tell us about how much the World Cup means to Colombians?
I mean, we're a football nation, Samantha, and as Nuno was mentioned, we had an opportunity to see over the last couple of years stadiums around the world empty, and it doesn't look like a real game. So fans are the real stakeholders of the sport. And for Colombians, just as an example, for Brazil and Russia, we have a little bit over 100,000 supporters traveling to support the team, to support the national team, and that's what it means to us. We're crazy about the sport, we love the sport, and we would like to see Colombia qualify, obviously, for Qatar and experience this wonderful country and football nation.
Yeah. Oh, 100,000 fans, yeah. That's unbelievable. Yeah. That's true passion right there. Yeah. Well, as Juan Pablo says, the future of football is the sum of its parts, and there are several parts to consider, beginning with that discussion with the global football family.
The current international match calendar is set to expire in 2023 for women's football and in 2024 for men's football. Now there is a real opportunity for all the key stakeholders to have their say on football's future. FIFA welcomes diverse views and is facilitating debate. Jill Ellis and Arsene Wenger are leading the consultations on the sporting side, and several proposals have been put forward for consideration. For the first time, fans are part of those discussions. Players, coaches and officials are being heard, as well as leagues, media organisations, member associations, confederations, commercial partners and other stakeholders in the biggest consultation process football has ever seen. It's an open dialogue, analysing the present to improve the future, with the objective of having concrete proposals submitted by the end of 2021.
Also answering the questions of the fans is FIFA's Chief of Global Football Development, Arsene Wenger, who's out here in Doha for the FIFA Arab Cup. Welcome, Arsene. First, are you ready to tackle some tough questions and comments from the fans?
Of course, with pleasure, because I'm myself a football supporter, and I'm very happy to answer all their questions.
Well, for the next point, we go to England, and as you're very familiar with, as Keith says, overall, international and club football needs less matches, not more. It seems that many organisations, including FIFA and UEFA, are now prioritising quantity over quality, presumably for financial reasons. FIFA's proposal to hold the World Cup every 2 years is an example of this. There becomes a saturation point where people lose interest due to too many games and lack of quality. To hold a major tournament every year would be ridiculous. Players need sufficient rest in order to perform at the highest levels. This proposal will only add to the demands being made on them and detrimentally impact their performance. What are your thoughts on Keith's comments, Arsene?
Well, that again, I would say that until now, in mind, we have that. And what we want to explain maybe a little bit better is to keep the balance that exists at the moment is 80% club football and 20% national team football. I believe it's an important priority that we keep that balance right without increasing the number of games. So in our proposal, it is to reduce the number of qualifying games and to add one more tournament every 2 years without increasing the number of games, and as well to give a mandatory rest period after the big competition to give the players all the health and safety that is needed.
The next question also comes from Daniel, and Daniel says that FIFA should work with member confederations towards synchronizing the period of international confederation tournaments like AFCON, Euros, Copa America, etc., etc. These tournaments should be made to take place every 2 years between June and August. This will address the conflict that often arises between mainly the European-based clubs about the release of players for international duties. Now, his last point is that the World Cup should be made to take place every 2 years between June and July, but should be made not to fall on the same years with the confederation tournaments like AFCON, Euros and Copa America. What do you have to say about that?
I must say I'm a fan of this question because I believe that the more breaking points you have during a season, the more frictions you have between clubs and national teams. In my proposal, it is to reduce the number of interruptions in a season and to have less traveling and less friction opportunities between clubs and national teams. I'm as well a big fan of synchronizing all the confederations competitions and doing at the same time and in the same period. For example, this season we have a problem with the African Nations Cup, will be played in January. That means the players cannot participate with their club in important competitions and have to go to play away in international competitions. That's why what we want to change, and we want everybody to play in the same period.
We're about to reveal the findings of the fan survey, but before all of that, we asked the fans here in Doha for the FIFA Arab Cup for their opinion on a World Cup every 2 years.
I think it's a good idea because it's going to show it's more exciting. There's more World Cups, and people would argue that it ruins the excitement, but it just brings more excitement every 2 years. And what's wrong with making the fans happy seeing their team play every 2 years in the World Cup?
Non, je préfère pas avoir la Coupe du Monde chaque 2 années. Je préfère attendre 4 ans pour qu'on puisse avoir cette excitation, pour attendre quelque chose de vraiment beau. Quand la durée elle est longue, l'attente elle est mieux et l'excitation elle est meilleure.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, personally, I think there's so many people that love football, and I think 4 years to qualify it's a long process of qualification, elimination to get to a World Cup. So I think, it's pretty awesome, and you get to go around the world. It would be more international, more places. So.
Well, I think that the World Cup being held every 2 years has pros and cons. Pros could be that there's more chance for the fans to watch these matches, and it's more fun for the teams because they get to play more. The cons, however, would be that maybe the teams either could be tired, or maybe that throughout the years that will be too packed. Because if it's more, then people have more chances to be in the World Cup. So then they try to take that chance. So I think that yes and no, but mainly I think yes, because it'll be a more fun experience and people can watch this amazing event more.
I don't think it's a good idea to have the cup every 2 years. We would prefer to have it every 4 years. Just the way it is, it makes it more interesting. We're always looking forward to these kind of games. But if it's just every 2 years, I think the interest that all the fans have from all around the world to come watch the games every 4 years would be much less.
Well, if it looks like a bright idea, especially if it drives economic growth and really prosperity to the places and regions where it's going to be held at, and provide better opportunity for small countries to have better chances to qualify.
Okay, let's bring Arsene back into the fold. And Arsene, what do you make of the comments of the fans here at the Arab Cup?
Well, I would say they're bright. All the opinions are quite bright and analyze well the problems. Some raise that is a fantastic opportunity for football to grow over the world, to give more challenge to the fans as well, more exciting moments. And some are a little bit worried about the fatigue factor and for the players. But you know, we analyzed, at the moment, anybody plays in June anyway. What we want to just replace give a more important competition with more meaning to the fans than before. And as well, we analyzed what is the average number of games a player plays at the World Cup in the last 5 times he went to the World Cup. For example, if you go out after group stage, you play only 3 games in a World Cup. What is the case of most of the teams, you know, when you had 32 teams, 16 teams, their players play only 3 games. And on average, the players who played the most for big countries like France, Brazil, England, they play on average between 3 and 5 games per World Cup, you know. So the fatigue factor is not, we don't think is a problem. If, of course, they have the mandatory rest period, I will defend this project as long as we can put as a certainty the mandatory rest period of 25 days after the World Cup.
Thank you very much, Arsene. Right, we've heard plenty about the background and the issues on the table, but what about the fans survey and the key conclusions? Do fans want to change the international match calendar, and does that mean biennial World Cups? Before providing the analysis, I'd like to discuss the survey format with Peter Webber from Iris. Now, Peter, thank you very much to the stadium, and welcome to the Future of Football Fans webinar.
Thank you very much, Samantha. It's great to be here and to talk to you about the future of sports. As you say, FIFA has been tasking us a kind of 6 months ago to run a study and to collect the opinion of the world about changing the World Cup frequency. And here we are, we've got 100,000 results to present, and I'm very happy to be here and to share that with you.
So, Peter, can you tell us about the 77,000 people surveyed and how they were divided across the continents?
Yes, sure. I mean, as I said, we've started with 100,000 people participating, as a first step in 140 countries around the globe. These 140 countries are accounting for 95% of the global population, so it's a very broad approach and covering a big part of the world. And then we kind of narrowed that down. We've been eliminating countries with not enough interviews to be represented, and we've also been cutting out a part of the study which dealt with the World Cup of men only and had also some other aspects considered. So we then resulted with about 77,000 people, which we are now looking at on the results, and amongst them there is more than 30,000 football fans.
Well, it sounds like a very thorough survey. How did you go about getting all of that data?
Well, see, the easiest way would be to ask just everybody, but based on 8 billion people on the world, that's a bit difficult. So the way we as an industry, based on an industry standard, are working with this is we are using what we call a panel. And a panel is nothing else than just a sample by each country and each continent and each confederation in the world. And this sample is intending to be as representative as possible. So you're considering the distribution of age, the distribution of gender, the distribution of income and other parameters in order to make sure that the results are really applicable to the big world and are representative.
So, Peter, can you tell us how important was it that this was a truly global survey?
Well, if you want to get an outcome which is representing the world, then you have to make sure that the proportions are fitting. So in the study, of the 100,000 interviews, we've got 50% coming from Asia, whereas Asia actually stands for 60% of the population of the world. And we've included 18% from Europe, whereas the population just represents 12% of the global world population. Otherwise, for Africa and the other regions, we are fully representative.
And this latest study is a part of an overall analysis process with the opinions of 100,000 canvassed worldwide.
Yes, I mean, this is, we've broken it down into two study parts. The first one was about 24,000, the second one is about 77,000. We are looking today on the result of the 77,000. This is representative both for the Men's World Cup and for the Women's World Cup. This has been put together based on best industry standards, and the methodology and the outcomes in all detail are available on FIFA.com.
Okay, so let's get started. Let's go through the results of the Women's World Cup. Can you just talk us through it?
Thank you very much. See, these are the first results now on the Women's World Cup, and we're looking here at the football fans amongst the interviewed people. So here you see that the majority of the people, 52.4% actually, is in favor of having the World Cup more frequently, whereas only 13.5% are opposed. So as you see, there is quite a factor in between those two numbers, and still there is nearly 30% of the people who are not finally decided and answer with a maybe. So depending on how you're setting things up, a part of them may actually move into a kind of the supporters section.
Yeah, the maybes are very, very interesting indeed. Let's have a look at the age groupings, and it seems like there's a positive trend overall.
Well, what we can clearly see here on this chart is that the younger age groups, 16 to 24, 25 to 34, that these are most in favor of having the Women's World Cup more frequently. You see that there is a slight decrease if we come to the older age groups, but even if in the 55 plus, you see that the biggest category is still supporting to have the World Cup more frequently with 45%, whereas the opponents are with 16 and 18% in those two categories, still at a moderate level.
Okay, like we said before, this is a truly global survey, so let's have a look at the geography. And it looks like Europe isn't as convinced as the other continents. Can you just talk us through the results here?
Yes, sure, happy to do that. Well, you see that Africa and Asia on the left-hand side are actually the continents being most in favor of having the World Cup more frequently with 56 and 61%. And then you see that the other regions are rather a kind of in the balance, and Europe is falling off. So you see that only every third interviewed amongst the fans is actually in favor of having the Women's World Cup more frequently. However, if you then dig a little bit deeper and you take a look at the gender, then you see that 39% of the female fans are in support. So there's a clear differentiation between female fans and male fans on this question.
Okay, we're going to dig a little bit deeper now when it comes to the geography and look at the actual countries as well. What do these specific figures tell us?
Well, these figures are actually telling us how the three most opposing countries are thinking about having the World Cup more frequently. And you can see that in the UK, more than half of the people that have been interviewed amongst the football fans are actually against having the World Cup more frequently. So there's certainly work to be done to convince them about the advantages. If you're looking to Germany and France, who are the next countries to follow, you see that the numbers are getting slightly lower. But still, these three countries are very clearly positioned against having the World Cup more frequently.
Okay, so those are the opposing ones. What about the ones that are actually for a frequent World Cup?
Well, what you can see is these are I think it's just sports crazy countries. So if you're looking into India, Turkey and Vietnam with agreement rates of 82 and 79 and 77%, and you then compare that to the percentage of the opponents, which is nearly non-existing, then you see that these countries are actually standing behind a more frequent World Cup nearly to 100%.
Okay, thanks for that, Peter. Certainly some food for thought related to those points on the FIFA Women's World Cup. We'll now turn our attentions to the Men's World Cup and the results of the second survey in relation to the frequency of this competition. So, Peter, what were your findings with the Men's World Cup?
What you can see is that the support for a more frequent Men's World Cup with 63.7% is even higher than it was for the Women's World Cup. And if you go to the number of opponents with 11%, that's less than a kind of a factor of 20%. And then there is a big group of maybes left again that you may be able to convince, depending on the frame conditions, the event is taking place under. So I would say the fans globally are very much in favor of having the Men's World Cup more frequently.
Okay, so let's have a look at the age groupings. And again, it's quite similar to the women's findings, where there's a positive overall outlook. Can you just go into those figures, please?
Yeah, as you say, and you've wrapped it up correctly, there is a kind of a strong support amongst the young age groups with 65 and 69 percentage points. And whilst the support for a more frequent World Cup erodes towards the older age groups, even amongst the 55 plus, we've got a majority of the people that have been inquired supporting a more frequent World Cup.
Okay, and in terms of geography, yet again, it looks like Europe isn't as convinced as the other continents.
You're absolutely right, Samantha. As you can see, that in Asia and in Africa, 66 or even 76% of people are in favor of having a more frequent World Cup. In 3 other regions of the world, there's also a majority supporting that, and even in Europe, we're coming close to kind of a majority for that. And you see that there is always a factor in between those that are in favor and those that are opponent. And still there's a kind of a mixture of about 25% that could be convinced depending on the frame conditions.
Okay, well, let's have a look at the actual countries who are opposed to and for. First up, we have the other end of the spectrum. Can you talk about these findings?
Yeah. It's the 3 same ones that we already had when we talked about the Women's World Cup here. So it's England with 53% against it, Germany with 50%, and France with 42%. So there's certainly a strong opposition in those markets for a more frequent World Cup of men.
Okay, and the ones for?
Some are the same than before. So we see Turkey again, we see India with 87% and 85%. And we've got South Africa new on the list, replacing Vietnam with 85%. So there's a strong support in here. And if you look at the percentage of the opponents, it's nearly non-existing. So the whole country seem to be standing united behind the idea of having a more frequent World Cup.
Okay, well, one more question for you before I bring the legends back in. Look, we've seen a lot of figures and a lot of graphics, but let's humanize it a little bit. What does it all actually mean from the findings?
Well, if we are looking at the results, I can say that we're very convinced that both for the Women's World Cup as well as for the Men's World Cup, amongst the football fans, there's a clear majority globally that wants the events to take place more frequently. Yeah? If you look a little bit deeper in the results, you see that the support is strongest obviously in Asia and in Africa, whereas it then still very strong in the 3 other regions, and in Europe it's a little bit more difficult to get to a clear opinion, and in some cases you could even say that they're opponent against it. Then you see that the younger are usually more supportive than the older, whereas even amongst the older age groups there is still quite a strong support. So I must say, from my perspective, I think that is a very clear statement of the world of football for having the World Cup more frequently.
Okay, thank you very much, Peter, for all of your hard work. And as you've noted, this has been one of the most comprehensive global sports market studies that has been done. Around 77,000 people have had their opinions canvassed from all over the world. We know that just over half of those interviewed would like to see a more frequent World Cup, on the basis that it doesn't mean an increase of overall matches for the players. Let's bring in our legends. You've just seen the results there. Nuno, I'm going to start with you. What did you take away from those results?
Well, I think it's important to notice that the study reflects the opinion of fans all over the world, not only for some countries. You know, football is a people's game, so we need to respect everyone's opinion. I can see also that the young generation it's open to the change, and I noticed that some countries in Europe, I'm not surprised, some countries in Europe are against, but I believe in general, for what I just saw, the fans everywhere else are open and are keen to discuss and to get into a detailed discussion into the subject.
Yeah, we're definitely having a healthy debate about all of this. Juan, Pablo, this is what the game needs, a healthy debate and discussion about the future of football. From your perspective, what did you take from these results?
I mean, Samantha, the results are overwhelming, and one of the biggest challenges that the sport is facing in the future is how to connect with the new generation of fans, how they interact with the game. And the survey is showing us clearly that they're open to a more frequent World Cup. And we have to listen to them. We gotta honor that to them. And this discussion is for that, to try to bring that into the equation. And hopefully we get to a conclusion that will help move the sport forward.
So, Nuno, it's kind of clear that the least favourable market in these changes is Europe. Now, as a European, what do you think of that?
Yeah, well, I'm not surprised, as I told you, because it's a traditional situation, I believe. Also because in Europe, some countries in Europe, and the fans of some countries in Europe, they are used to have almost every weekend a big game to watch, to attend, because the most valuable players and the biggest stars of the game, they play in those countries in Europe. So I think part of that, you get the answer because of that.
Okay, Juan Pablo, I'm going to give you the final word as well. There seems to be an openness to change in South America. And what do you read into those results?
I mean, Samantha, the results clearly shows the large majority are either open or in favor of having a more frequent World Cup in South America. So, that reflects the necessity of playing the World Cup a little bit more often. So I'm happy about it, because I think the game should be we should be doing something about the fans and listening to them and taking them into the equation. They are ultimately the biggest stakeholders of the game.
Okay, thank you very much, Peter. Thank you also to Nuno and Juan Pablo, to Arsene Wenger, and of course to the people across the world who contributed and joined this much needed conversation. Now, FIFA will host a global summit virtually on Monday. That's the 20th of December, which will advance this healthy debate on the topic of making football truly global. From myself and the team here at the Al Bayt Stadium, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you very soon. Bye.